Bullshit. The No BS Marketing Show is brought to you by audible.com. Get your free audiobook by going to audibletrial.com/nobs. Over 200,000 titles to choose from. It's the No BS Marketing Show. This episode is a special one. It features excerpts from the first ever show featuring my brother Mike Mastovich as a guest. Now, Mike wrote the book Slapshots and Snapshots, The History of Hockey in Johnstown. And anyone that is a sports fan has probably heard about hockey in Johnstown, specifically Slapshot the movie, ranked one of the top sports movies of all time. Mike tells a couple of anecdotes, and this first one talks about how when the Johnstown Chiefs had their last game, it led up to an emotional time, and Mike did some feature stories about it. I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, there were several stories on the history of hockey and the Chiefs that received recognition, but the final Johnstown Chiefs game, that was a pretty big event. The Johnstown Chiefs were a pro hockey team, minor league hockey, that played in Johnstown for 22 seasons in what was known as the East Coast Hockey League, later just changed to ECHL. Hockey has been in Johnstown, pro hockey, since 1941-42, and then it really took off from 1950 since then, basically, with a break here or there. So hockey's kind of beloved in this town, and the fan base just unbelievable, knowledgeable of the sport, and just rabid fans, love their players, love the team.
I have to stop you to interject there. Talk about how Slapshot became the cult film and being in Johnstown, and then the Kraft Hockeyville
Sure.
as well.
Yeah, well, the Johnstown Jets played in the North American Hockey League, the Pro League, back in the 70s. And the 1974-75 team went from worst to first in the middle of the season, and they brought in three long-haired, bespectacled brothers. They were, in real life, they're called the Carlson brothers. They had a guy named Dave Hansen, a tough guy. They had a lot of great veterans, like a gentleman named Galen Head, Vern Campagato. But they had a great team, and they just turned it on right around Christmas time, and they ended up winning the title. Well, during this title run, one of the players, his sister, who was a screenwriter, stayed with him and traveled with the team for most of the season. Her name was Nancy Dowd. His name was Ned Dowd. Nancy, if you Google her, she is very well respected, well known screenwriter. So Nancy wrote the script for what turned out to be the Paul Newman movie Slapshot, which came out in '77. And that movie, they say it hit it right on the mark. It uses a lot of vulgar language and some very R-rated scenes in terms of violence in hockey, but they say it hit it right on. So the movie became a cult classic international hit. It's one of the best rated sports movies of all time. And in hockey, it's revered in hockey. Like if you're in the minor leagues, driving the 10-hour bus trips to play a game, that movie's always watched. Players still recite the lines. Players, fans, everybody, they know the lines. The Hanson brothers in the movie, which were based on the Carlson brothers in real life, those guys are like, they're infamous, and they've been touring for 20 years. They're still in great shape. They still look just like they did in the movies, and they tour and they do charity work. It's just like legendary in this town. So that brings a whole nother level to Johnstown, and that led to I don't know if we'll talk about this, but Johnstown just won a national vote to be named Kraft Hockeyville, USA. So there's just so much going on with hockey in Johnstown, but it kind of all ties in. Just that gives you the perspective of how big the Chiefs were and how big of a blow it was. That just like in the movie Slapshot, the team relocated south after the 2010. And it was just like a punch in the gut for this community. Well, their last home game was just a huge, huge event, sellout. People from all over came to watch the game. And the newspaper staff, we really went all out, the Tribune, Democrat, and had multiple reporters there, multiple photographers. Really, as they say in the movie Slapshot, Dickie Dunn, the reporter, captured the spirit of the thing. And we produced a a lot of articles that really hit home. I was really proud of the game story I wrote and the column. I actually got emotional writing that column, and just even ended it with the one sidebar that Dave and I talked about many times is there's a bunch of rowdy fans at the top of section 10, and every game they would wait. I don't know how they did it, but they watched because it's pretty far away from where I sat in the press box. You can see me because it's a small arena, and they waited till I looked like I wasn't paying attention to them or maybe dozing off or something, but they would always chant in unison, "Hi, Mike." And then I would stand up and wave to them, and then they would go crazy. So this went on for at least 10 or 15 years. And then gradually, not as many of them went to the game, so it kind of died down at the end, especially when the team was playing bad. But that last night, I really got emotional. I ended my column with this line where it was almost the end of the game, and they all stood up and they chanted, "Bye, Mike." And it was like hit my heart. I jumped up and waved to them, saluted them one last time. So that was the kind of stuff that went into that package that was a Keystone Award winning package as well as the Golden Quill. So that was a great team effort by the TD there.
Well, why it's significant to the Don't Be a Bullshit Marketer podcast is this podcast is about telling your story and about messages. And it doesn't matter if you like hockey. It doesn't matter if you even know where Johnstown is. The people that are listening that heard that story took away what happened and were touched emotionally. And that's what great storytelling is all about. You don't have to be passionate about what that person is telling the story about if the story is told in the right way or in a positive way that can make an emotional impact and be memorable. That's Mike Mastovich, my brother. He was the guest historically for the first ever episode of the No BS Marketing Show, but also because he's a Hall of Famer for his storytelling and writing. And he wrote the book Slapshots and Snapshots, The History of Hockey in Johnstown, which he referenced. Here, this excerpt, he talks about how when the Johnstown Chiefs had their last game, and you heard about that in the first excerpt, they transitioned from a pro league hockey town to a junior league hockey town. And then when Kraft was going to have their Hockeyville, USA, the first ever Hockeyville, USA, and name a town Hockeyville, USA for a year, Johnstown applied and put in a lot of effort into seeing if they could win. Hear that story now.
After the Johnstown Chiefs left, that was pro hockey. There was a little gap there. There was a team from Wheeling played a couple of its home games here in pro, and then they were able to have good fortune and land a junior hockey team. They're called the Johnstown Tomahawks. And they're ironically, the name of the league they're in is the same name as the league that had the slapshot team, North American Hockey League, but it's junior, it's not pro. And this, like I said, it's a hockey town. Whenever that team came here, it was embraced. Fans were just so glad to have hockey back, and they really fell in love with the team. It was a whole different ballgame, different age group, 17 to 20. It was young kids trying to get into college, basically, whereas the other one was pro, and you're trying to go up the pro ladder. So this team's very community-oriented. They brought in Mario Lemieux, who's a Hall of Famer from the Penguins. They brought in other Penguins. They brought in the Stanley Cup. They have big festivals outside the arena for opening night, fireworks, all kinds of things. So they're very community-oriented. And earlier this year, Kraft, like as in Kraft, macaroni and cheese, Kraft products, they have a contest they had in Canada for maybe 6 years called Hockeyville. Well, this was the first year they wanted to have Hockeyville USA, see how it would take off. And the process is you have to have fans submit essays or video essays on why they feel Johnstown should be Hockeyville USA. And the response was overwhelming. And they picked one, and that got Johnstown nominated. Then there was a several weeks process where you had to vote either by internet, texting, or old school people would call in and get a message, and you'd follow the prompts and you vote for your city. Well, I don't think they were ready for Johnstown because, the internet went down multiple times. The phone lines were blown out. It was crazy. So it went through this whole process every week. Johnstown kept advancing and advancing. We're thinking, can this be possible? And sure enough, on May 2nd, the last round, they had it on NBC live during the Stanley Cup playoff game, they broke away to Johnstown. There was 3,000 some people in the arena, and they were instructed if a woman held up a green exclamation point, that means you won, and they wanted everybody to freak out. Well, she held up that exclamation point, and that place went nuts. It was so emotional. I mean, I was choking up. I was videotaping it with my phone. It was just a great process, and the whole way through, the whole community came together, and there was so much, as you say, messaging. There were so many points made. We've got to do this. We've got to stick together, stay on message, keep doing what we're doing, and don't give up when these phone lines go down. Don't give up when the internet crashes. It was a great experience to be a part of it. And the Tribune, it was one of those where you're on that fine line. We supported it so much and did so many stories. There was like a story a day. Changed our banner to say Hockeyville, USA, right, with Johnstown. We were doing it for the community. Some people might say, hey, you might be crossing that line, but we looked at it was more important to be there for the community. And, we produced a lot of stories that were talking about the history of the town and hockey in the town and slapshot and so forth.
When you ask yourself, what's the big idea? Johnstown, Pennsylvania is Hockeyville, USA. And that illustrates what's the big idea. And for listeners out there, anytime you have to make a speech, a presentation, anytime you have to sell your product, ask yourself, what's the big idea? The history of hockey in Johnstown and how it became known as Hockeyville, USA is from the first ever episode of the No BS Marketing Show featuring my brother Mike, a Hall of Fame storyteller and the author of Slapshots and Snapshots. Hope you enjoyed it. Remember to sign up for our No BS weekly review at massolutions.biz for marketing and messaging tips to help your storytelling, sales, and branding efforts. Remember, ask yourself, what's the big idea? And build your story around the answer. It's all about bold solutions, no BS.